have you noticed any like negative things, or let's rephrase that? Have been some of the pros and cons of taking the ecological dynamics approach to jujitsu that you've noticed since for this last year, if there are any cons?
Okay, we'll talk about quick pros. They've been talked about at over and over, but I just want to talk about the main ones that I think are so important, why it's so valuable, and why I usually try to encourage people to implement. Okay, one, think of another blue belt that's just really good at grappling. You're like, damn, he's good. I bet that guy spars way more than you do. And
Yeah,
it's really it. He gets so much more live time, so he's obviously very good. It's like so that's one thing is if you train twice a week, you're an average human training twice a week. Most normal formats, you will get 30 minutes of live training in the week. 15 minutes session A, 15 minutes session B. If you are in my class, you will get 90 minutes of live training in that week, about 45 minutes a session. Just that alone is a huge bonus. Not a bonus, huge value, right? That's one of the biggest values there. Second thing, second really big pro is like feedback. You get so much feedback on what is going wrong, what is going right when you're trying to play. Because here's the thing that happens is most schools that are running more of a traditional approach, they either do like situational, so like guard pass, sweep or submit, whatever, or they're doing full sparring. I don't get enough reps of something important in those. Whereas here, I'm going to put you in a situation, give you something to really focus on, and you're going to get a ton of attempts in short succession to see if you can make that happen. And when it doesn't happen, you'll figure it out. For example, the other day, we were actually doing arm bars this week. The first game, a guy just could not keep his partner pinned with his legs, like at all. But by the second game, dude figured out how to use his legs now because he had so many failure points in a row, right? In a row. Let's say even if we were doing a more traditional, he drilled the arm bar and then we did positional sparring from the mount or something or whatever. He might never get to that arm bar again, and it might be so short-lived that he never gets to develop any sensitivity. So just being able to get that constant feedback and touches, like to interact with the skill that you're trying to build that much is huge, right? Because humans are trial and error learning machines. That's literally how we learn a lot of stuff, right? Yeah, those are like two of the biggest benefits. Also, like, man, we always like say jiu-jitsu is so great for like your fitness and stuff. Man, I remember doing a lot of classes barely sweating back in the day. Like 3 rounds is not a lot of rounds, let's say. It can be, but it's just not. 45 minutes, it's a lot of training. You definitely worked a lot, I see a lot of my students, they're in better shape. New students who want to lose weight, they will actually lose weight doing jiu-jitsu now, right? Because they're training hard. Another benefit, injuries, way down.
Oh,
Super
interesting.
down. I rarely see anyone get hurt from an overzealous submission or roughness or whatever. Because here's my theory on that. If you never finish an armbar against resistance, and then you finally get an armbar exposed in your live training round, that is the last 15 minutes of class, it seems like such a fleeting window of opportunity that you better snatch that shit. But if earlier that day or just in your life, you've had 3 minutes where you just had a guy's hand separated and you're pinning and learning to control this armbar and how to do it effectively, and boom, like you're just not so pent up about it. You've been in those situations, both sides of it. You spend so much time live too. Also, like it's just like you don't go from 0 to 100. You're just always going all class, So you like I like even when we do the full lock sub things, I don't see people getting hurt. And then when they live train after, they just don't really. Part of it's like some of the culture we've built around it, but playing these like little games and working on these skills has really allowed them to just be safer as a whole. Cons, let's see. So cons are the biggest con. It's not a true con. It's just a challenge that should be addressed. Is that you'll probably want to figure out how are you going to touch on all the things that you think are important skills. You'll have to make those decisions. Your prioritization of what is the only feedback I ever have that's negative from a student is, man, I wish we could. It's been a while since we've gotten a chance to dive into this subject. Diving into dark scenarios or this one or that one or whatever, like that is going to be a legit con, but that is sort of an always existent con of trying to program for a large group, right? That doesn't exist in only this narrow situation. That is just like a universal thing, right? Is that, to be able to cover everything in a routine, predictable fashion, you either need many different levels of class where each one has different core focuses and core outcomes that you're looking to develop, or, it's like that's just a general challenge for programming, and that other con, it's not really a con. It is, but like, if you implement it, you will lose some members.
That's
Why?
what I heard too.
But not like in a negative way. It depends on how you do it. I really didn't have much of this, but I hear people who have this happen. 2 reasons, okay? One is now shit got way more physical than it ever was. Right? Yeah. But like, how long was that person's jiu-jitsu timeline anyways? Because eventually it gets pretty physical, like not to like be negative about someone whose goals weren't that, but sport jiu-jitsu is you trying to control another person the whole time. It's a lot more physical, so it can be like you might just not like that as much, because think in a traditional format, there's 2 things that happen. You get to learn a thing and feel nice, and you get to spar and feel nice. Now, you only spar and feel nice about your progress that you make during. It's just like you just changed what you're delivering. Of course, there will be some drop off. It's like if I removed a thing from my menu and just gave you more of one other item, you might not like that because you actually enjoyed. That's just a thing that will happen. It's not because like, oh, it's because of the approach. It's because you're changing the service you're delivering.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if this were a CrossFit gym and we went from using all like these certain equipments and I just pulled out the rower from the gym and we took away bumper plates, it'd be a different experience and you might not like it as much. And that's okay. That's just, that is a thing, Yeah, so that's like a negative, but it's not really a negative. It's you're changing what you're delivering. It just is. That is what will happen when anytime you implement a change. It's not going to be for everyone, and that's just normal. You can't be like, oh man, I lost some students. The other reason you will lose people is because the way you positioned everything was about how deep your knowledge was. That you were this magical textbook of very intricate things, or you taught in such a way. Again, though, it's the exact same thing. You trained your audience to like a certain type of product. They loved training with you because you would give them very intricate, detailed leg lock sequences that were from here to here. This hand grips here, I pass here. It's just because that's what you trained them on. That's what you deliver. That's what they liked. That's okay. You just understand that'll probably be a thing that'll happen, right? That's all. But there's like other pros, like, man, I have students like, man, I used to feel like I hit plateaus a lot. Now I don't really.
Interesting.
Because they're forced to play all of jiu-jitsu all the time. Whereas if I just started to guard pass sparring, you might not really get better. Or if you just do full sparring, you definitely probably won't get better. But if class is always forcing you to play with different skills and different engagements and really understand, you will get better. And that's what we find happens a lot. It's like, I haven't heard about people be feeling like stuck. All I hear about is people who have things that they want to work on now, which is a way different sentiment. Feeling like you're not getting better versus feeling like you have things you want to work on are two very different sentiments for someone to express. Right? And now we have more of the latter, people who have identified things they want to work on. And why can they do that? I think is because their awareness of what is really happening is way higher, and the problems they have, and now they're thinking of a solution. Like I have a bunch, like I threw this out in like my school's Discord. I'm like, hey, what are some things you're trying to work on? And the answers were all over the place. But I knew all the answers were because of things that happened to them in training. Right? Which is what I want. I don't want someone just like, oh, I need to work on my guard. That's very generic. You're like, I need to work on wrestling up from half. I can't do that often. Or I want to work on playing more open turtle, referee position stuff. Or I want to be a body lock passer because over under is sort of failing me. Like that's what we're getting now in terms of students engaging with their own growth and progress.